The media's portrayal of suicide has played a huge role in society's understanding of suicide and mental health. The lack of productive and informative conversations, coupled with the inefficient mental wellness forums at primary doctors, are adding to the stigma. And on top of that, ADHD is overdiagnosed in males and underdiagnosed in females. There has been so much improvement over the years, yet we are still so far from where we need to be. Welcome to Normalize the Conversation. I'm your host, Francesca Reicheter, and today I'm joined by mental health professional and advocate AmandaGrace Krier. Join us as we discuss current trends and shortcomings in suicide prevention and what we hope to see in the future. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to learn more about you and have this conversation, but before we begin, I really just want to check in. How are you really?
I'm doing okay. And that's kind of my baseline that I haven't been doing so great the last few weeks. I think it also has to do with the weather here in Pennsylvania. It's a little up and down. But I have been able to utilize my coping skills. I've been able to talk to my therapist. And I think at the moment I'm doing better than I was last week, but I'm doing okay.
That's really great to hear that you're doing better than last week and you're so self-aware. I mean, you're very self-aware of where your baseline is and things that can impact how you're feeling. I know for me, that's something that I really struggled with. Someone asked me the other day, actually, they're like, are you at your baseline? Like, where are you? And I was like, I have no idea. Like, I didn't even I know, and I'm the queen of telling everyone to like check in with yourself every day. And then I'm like, I don't even pay attention to where my baseline is. I kind of just like, I'm okay today or I'm not okay. And
Yeah.
what can I do? So I'm really excited to get to learn more about you. Tell us about you.
Well, I don't even know where to start. I am a lot of things, but mental health is my passion. It's honestly a little, I think, overwhelming for some people because like they're like, "What do you do in your free time?" And I'm like, "I go to mental health walks and like I go to different screenings in the community and like I when I say that like mental health is my life, like it really is. It's what I do in my free time. It's my profession. I just love talking about mental health and breaking down stigma. And yeah, it kind of consumes a lot of my life when I think about it. But I mean, besides that, I love to cook. I'm a big uh, cooking person that I love doing different recipes. If you were to open up my TikTok, that it's just all recipes of different things that like I plan on trying, but like, am I actually gonna ever make those? Probably not.
Thank you so much for sharing. My TikTok is like that too. All these different recipes. I'm like, I'm totally gonna cook. I send them to my friends every day. I'm like, come over, let's cook. And then we just have like pasta with butter. So
That that's okay because sometimes like the best recipes are the simplest ones.
yeah, and the ones that just you know what to do. It doesn't take any time or effort. You don't have to go to the store.
The
Oh,
ones that make you feel good. Like honestly,
yeah.
I think the one that's making me feel the best right now is pastina, and it's just like
I love
noodles
pasta.
and egg and butter. And does it have any nutritional value? Probably not, but it's just so good.
Yeah. Oh, I love when I used to spend so much time focused on what I was eating. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I still do. I'm very, very annoyingly health conscious at times. I can be, and I feel so bad for my friends who get to experience those fun times with me. But I really love those moments where I can just eat what I want that makes me feel good and homey inside. I mean, it brings me back to like pasta with butter when my grandparents used to make that for me when I was like 6 years old and like
Oh,
this time of happiness instead of being so like hyper focused on my wellness in this moment, just like enjoying a minute of happiness.
exactly. All food is good food, especially when it's in moderation. Like I mean, is going to McDonald's the best thing every day? Probably not. But I mean, if it's better than eating nothing. So all food is good food.
Absolutely. I'm gonna remember that when I devour a chocolate cake tonight.
Oh, yes.
So let's talk more about mental health. I know for me, like mental health also consumes every part of my life. Everything I do has something to do with my mental health or helping someone else. But what inspired your journey?
Honestly, that looking back like 6 years ago, that if you would have told me that I'm at the place in my life that I am right now, I would have been like, you're crazy. Like, no way. That my family was not the family that talked about our mental health. Like, we were the very surface level people. And then in September of 2017, my cousin Sean died by suicide. And I didn't know that there was a place lower than rock bottom, but there is. And we found it. And that rocked our whole world, especially because the media pushes this image of what suicide looks like, that it's the kids that wear black clothes and they sit in the back of the classroom and they don't have friends. And that's not who my cousin was. That he was very popular. He was voted the school's class clown 2 years in a row. He was the athlete. And so after he died, it kind of just changed my whole worldview, that he attempted prior, several years prior, and we very much like shoved it under the rug. We were like, you know what? He's getting help. That's okay. Like, that's his business. We're not going to talk about it. And after he passed away, I was like, I can't not talk about this anymore. That, like, this is my life now. And so I started getting involved in my local community, in our local suicide prevention walk and our local NAMI affiliate. And the more I talked about my journey as a loss survivor, the more I became comfortable talking about my own personal struggles, that I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder and I have attention deficit disorder. And as I was just talking in the community with the National Alliance on Mental Illness, that that I just felt that I want to do this all the time. That this is great. And so I then, like, in a blink of an eye, like I said to my mom, I'm gonna change my major. Like, it was like an idea, and I changed my major the next week to behavioral health, and I've never looked back. And it was probably one of the best decisions that I've ever made. But like I said, if you would have told me that this was going to be my life, I never would have believed you, because that's just not the person that I was like 6 years ago.
First, I want to say I am so sorry for your loss, but I'm also so happy that you were able to take that pain and turn it into hope for not just yourself, but for so many other people.
Yeah.
It's very rare that people turn their pain into purpose and into hope and into passion. A lot of times pain really consumes us, and a lot of times pain can turn into anger. So for
Yes.
you to have taken it and use it as a way to help others is beyond amazing, and I am so inspired by you and excited to be having this conversation with you.
Well, thank you.
So I really want to touch on that point of what the media makes mental health look like and makes suicide look like, because that was something that I really struggled with too. I was like, well, I don't fit the stereotype of what it's supposed to look like, so I must be fine. And then after I started struggling and I had attempted and came out of the psych ward, anytime I was in like all black clothing, everyone was like, why are you wearing all black? Are you okay? And I was like, no, I just like black is slimming. I don't know.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
that's
Like,
my
it's just
wardrobe.
comfortable.
Yeah. I'm just like not in a colorful mood every day. But it's not like there was just all this misconception and people were kind of looking at me through a lens of what they thought it was supposed to look like and missing a lot of like the warning signs of,
Yeah.
no, I'm crying every day at night. I might be around people all day and smiling, but what's happening behind closed doors? Kind of missing those warning signs because we're so focused on that image, like you said, that the media has created.
Yes. That it that you look at the way that suicide has been depicted for many years in the media, and it's so not what it is. Because you look at, like, like what was that show? Oh, the 13 Reasons Why.
Yeah.
That is not what suicide looks like, because you can see what suicide looks like with Robin Williams, with Chesley Chris, with so many other or who's the new one, Twitch, the dancer Twitch, that you see the pictures of these people several days before they take their life, and it doesn't look like 13 Reasons Why at all. And because that's not what it looks like. I can say, though, one of the most accurate depictions of suicide that I have ever seen in the media is A Million Little Things. That, if you don't know what that show is about, it's about a father who takes his life, and then the entire rest of the show, at least for the first season, like then it kind of trails off into other things, but the first season of the show is about, what do you do afterwards? What do we as family and friends, like, how do we pick up our lives in the aftermath of suicide loss? And all I can say is, whoever the writers are for that show, they either must be loss survivors themselves, or they have thoroughly done their homework, because it is 100% accurate in my opinion, and it's quite amazing.
I'm going to check it out, because it's so important that we're looking at these accurate depictions. And it's not to say that people who attempt suicide or who die by suicide are always the happiest person in the room.
Yeah.
But it's so important to realize that someone can be so happy and full of life in front of everyone every day, all day, and still be struggling. And we can't discount people based on what we see on the outside.
Yeah, something that I never knew that there was a term for it. I knew the warning sign for it, but now there is a term, pink clouding. That is something that I like, we didn't know prior to my cousin dying by suicide, is that is such a huge warning sign when, like, someone has been depressed or down or has been acting a certain way for a long period of time, and then all of a sudden they're happy, and like, you think that they're getting better, and in reality a lot of times it's pink clouding. It's right before they're about to attempt, and that's something that I don't think is talked about a whole ton when we're looking at warning signs, or we're teaching warning signs, because that was my cousin's story, that my family saw him the night before, and you never would have known that several hours later that he would have taken his life, and that is pink clouding.
Oh, thank you for sharing that term. It is so true that sometimes we just, you would never know because of that smile, that happiness, that light. And to see someone who's maybe been struggling for a while, and you've noticed, like, oh, they seem like they're struggling. Maybe they're feeling depressed. Maybe they've talked about it with you, but then all of a sudden they start smiling and they're super happy and full of energy and full of life. And we think, oh, they just snapped out of it, right? There's this idea that, oh, someone's going to snap out of depression.
That
They're probably not going to. It's not going to
Exactly.
happen like that. You're not going to snap your fingers and suddenly go from being super low to I'm fine, life is great again, and let's do it. Like, it's just not a magic pill. It's not the snap of a finger.
I wish it was. I wish it
Me
was
too.
like that. It would be so nice, but unfortunately not.
Yeah. Oh, I wish it was too. I remember for me, before my second attempt, I'll say. My second attempt, I have pictures of me from like hours before, and I have the biggest smile on my face. I'm like laughing with my aunt. I was like holding a baby and like smiling. Like, I was surrounded by all my friends and family, super happy. And like, I don't think I even knew in that moment how bad I was struggling, until suddenly I wasn't around everyone and my energy was completely drained. And I think that, looking back at it now and hearing that term, the pink clouding, it's so I think it changes my perspective on it, because I thought, oh, I must have been like making it so hard, and I might genuinely in that moment have been like just all of a sudden feeling like I was good again and life was great, and then suddenly I wasn't surrounded by people, and that fake energy that I had that was unintentional suddenly wasn't there anymore.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're still here.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really glad that you're talking about this and you're raising awareness and you're getting involved, because it is so incredibly important. And there's a lot of conversations on mental health. There really are. But there's not always a lot of conversations on different topics and newer topics. It tends to be very repetitive. And not saying that having repetitive conversations is bad, because we're talking about it and we need to be talking about it. But to talk about like the pink clouding, to talk about all these pieces, how the media is depicting suicide and how it doesn't always look that way. These are things that are often kind of just pushed under the rug and not spoken about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then we wonder why the suicide rate is not going down, even though more conversations are happening. We have to continue to progress those conversations. So I'm really thankful and grateful for you doing that. So let's talk about how you switched your major to behavioral health.
Yeah.
What was that like?
That was, I don't know. I think also, so I was an American Sign Language interpreting major in college, and I wasn't loving it entirely. I'm a hard of hearing person, so I do sign pretty regularly, but I had a run-in with a teacher that when you take ASL interpreting classes, a lot of your teachers are deaf themselves. So you're learning directly from deaf people. And the professor was very clear at the beginning of the class that he did not want to be teaching that class. He wanted to be teaching a different class in ASL. I don't know. But the entire semester, he never realized that there were two Amandas in the class. And even though clearly my name's AmandaGrace, but he didn't realize. So at the end of the year, he was like, I don't have any grades for you. And I was like, what do you mean you don't have any grades for me? Like, I got a B on the midterm. And he's like, no, Amanda got a B on the midterm. And I was like, so I ended up failing that class. And then along with that, then like my urge, like my feelings of wanting to change my major. So it was like divine intervention. It was like, okay, you got this F and you're not really feeling this anymore. Let's just switch your major. But I can say the first moment that I walked into a behavioral health and human services class, I knew that that's where I was supposed to be. That specifically when it comes to like helping profession majors, that the people that are there because they have a story, that we all have very different reasons why we want to be in this field. A lot of times it's not because of money, because we know that there's not a ton of money to be made in the helping professions, but we all have a story and we all have a reason for wanting to be there. Whether that is a personal experience, whether that is seeing somebody else struggle, that we're all there because we want to be. And the energy in the room was just so different than anything I've ever experienced in a college classroom. And I was like, oh, this is where I'm meant to be.
Oh, I love that so much. It's amazing when you find that major, that program that's just the right one for you. And I have to say, it took me a long time to get there. I started with business management as my bachelor's, did a master's in information systems, and then decided maybe I should do psych. And lots of debt later. I wish I figured it out earlier.
That's okay.
Right?
That's
It's fine.
okay.
Love that. But and I remember kind of like that first class and hearing my teacher talk about why it was important to them and their own story. And I was like, wow, like this is where I want to be. This is what I want to be doing, and being surrounded by people who not only cared, but had some kind of attachment to that greater purpose.
I remember walking in and the first thing out of my professor's mouth was like, my name is Will Miller. You can call me Will now because I'm not I'm not just your professor. Like, you are now entering the helping profession, and now we're colleagues. He's like, so I'm Will now. And I was like, whoa, like, oh my goodness. Cause so many other of my professors were like Dr. Ferdinand. Like that was it. But all of them were like, nope, I'm Will, I'm Fran, I'm Shelly. Like, and that's what it was, because we were no longer seen as professor student, that we all were just colleagues.
Oh, yes, I love that. I have a few teachers who've done that. Not many of them, but a few. And I remember how less intimidating that class became because suddenly it was like we're working together, and I was so much more excited to learn because I didn't feel like intimidated, like they know so much more than me and my voice, like I can't say the wrong thing. I felt like so excited to learn and like throw out my input, and maybe I was right, maybe I was wrong, but I was going to learn together instead of
Exactly.
like being so consumed by that grade.
Yeah. And that's okay. It's all a learning thing, that like when we walk in, that there's so much to learn, and the information keeps changing too. So it's like, it's okay that everything's a learning curve. Even like, it was interesting that even some of my professors that they would say something, what was the one? Oh, one of them used the term committed. They said something about committing suicide. And I said to them, like, can I offer you a critique? And they were like, yeah, like, absolutely. And I was like, we prefer in the loss community not to use the word committed anymore. We say die by. And then I explained why. And they were like, okay, cool. Like, thanks for letting me know. Like, I'm gonna remember that next time. And so it's just, the information is constantly changing. And also just, I think it was really cool to have a professor that was like open to
Yeah.
hearing that, like, hey, by the way.
Yes. Oh, I love that because language matters.
Yeah.
Language is really important. And sometimes it may seem like, oh, that's so minimal in the grand scheme of things. And we need to be focused on the research and learning the textbook word for word. But it's so important that as we are meeting people, connecting with people, forming that alliance, we are offering support and letting them know that they're heard, that they're valued, and how they feel is important to us. So to see that your teacher was so
Open.
open, yeah, it's the word, open to making that change is so, so important. And that just shows how much further I think we've come in mental health and behavioral health when we're willing to make those adjustments that may seem so small, but are huge in the long
But
run.
they are huge.
I think that as new research is developing, as new modalities and treatment plans, and just so many different things are developing, it's so important to be paying attention to language as well as different avenues that people can use to help. Because, like peer support, for example, I think that was something that was really undervalued for a very long time. And we're starting to see the benefits of having someone with lived experience, having a
Yes.
peer, someone who could be there, and maybe they don't have that $250,000 debt from that degree behind them, but they have some lived experience and value that they can offer and provide very important support.
Yeah. I was just at a educational event recently, and like, I'm a peer specialist, and I know that there's not a lot of young people that are like me, because a lot of people go to college and they do the college route. So they'll go for sociology or social work or psychology. But then not a ton of young people know that there is the peer profession, and for peer specialists. And I was at an event, and one of the doctors there, he worked for Penn State for like 2 decades. And he opened my eyes that, like, we constantly are saying that there's not enough professionals to meet the current demand. We know that. But he said that if every single undergraduate and graduate student in the United States, who is on like the clinical track, that they're like, I'm going to be a clinician, if every single one of them was given a clinical degree today, we still would not have enough professionals to meet the current demand, which blows my mind to think that. And then he just talked about like the rise of peer support and how like, because for a decade more, we've been trying to fix this broken system regarding mental health care, and it's not working. That we have to figure out new avenues and to bridge the gap between the lack of services, and rise of the peers is apparently a huge one that is happening, which I mean warms my heart because I just love peer support. But yeah, that, you know, trying to get into like high schools and colleges and teach people that like you don't necessarily need this big old degree to be able to affect people and show positive change within your community and support other people.
Absolutely. And I thought going into kind of like mental health that being a therapist was the only option. And I am on that track.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong. I
Me
love
too.
what I'm studying, right? Like, not in any way are we putting that down. But I think peer support is something that's so valuable and helpful,
Yeah.
whether or not you're on track to be a clinician, whether or not you want to be a clinician. I think it's something that's so valuable that often doesn't get the attention that it deserves. And one thing that I love to do, I am not a trained peer support specialist. I have not gone through the hours or anything, but I do like to attend trainings and just learn and see what people are doing, see how I can offer support. One day, maybe I will actually go and do the hours that I would need to do when I have the
I
time.
recommend it.
But, right? I really want to. But I love attending those trainings because I often learn more than what I'm learning in my classes. Not to discount what I'm learning in my classes. Very, very helpful. I should understand how to use the DSM completely. But, right? Like, I get that.
Yeah.
I should know how to write a treatment plan. Yes. But I also think that there's so much value in knowing how to use different interventions, how to help someone, and just validation statements, motivational interviewing, kind of like these things, right? That we just kind of, at least in my program, I can't speak on every program, but in my program, we skip those things. We don't really talk about the interventions as much. It's more on the textbook, the names of what you're supposed to, how to diagnose, the proper names that go into the treatment plan based on the orientation, the different orientations. At least to this point, that's what I've been learning and we've been focusing on. But doing those peer support trainings, I learn a lot more in depth about actually applying the interventions and providing that support in that moment, so that not waiting till I've gone through my whole program, have completed years of practicum and the clinical hours to get licensed to be able to use those interventions, I can support someone who's maybe a loved one in my life who's struggling and just needs that validation statement or help building a plan for themselves. You can kind of just those small, I don't want to say small interventions, but those key interventions that they're so useful.
It blows my mind sometimes when like I talk to psychologists or different physicians like that I know from my personal schooling, that like I took a psychology class, and when we brushed on suicide, the statistics that they were using were so incredibly outdated. I was like, this is wrong. That like they said something like suicide was like the 16th leading cause of death, and like the average is like 30,000 people in America. I was like, this number is well above that. And even that, like when I was in my doctor's office, that they had like their little 3-question mental health screening that they do, that they charge a butt ton of money for when it was 3 questions. But like the questions were like, have you thought about harming yourself? And I had to tell them that I was like, you know, this is like, if you're asking this question about suicidality, this is not the same question. Because thinking about harming yourself, that could be taken as a self-harm question, not a suicide question. So, and they had no idea what I was talking about. That I was like, because like I can honestly say that like I'm a person who lives with daily suicidal ideation, that I do, most of my family members do, that's just something but I'm not somebody who self-harms. So when I read that question, like, have I thought about harming myself? The answer is no. But have I thought about killing myself? Oh, absolutely. Every day. But like, it's the wording is foreign to them, even though that they've gone through all of this schooling. They just don't know.
Yeah, and those assessments, I have such a bone to pick with them because I know for me growing up, being in the doctor's office, being handed a little iPad, it was like, check yes or no, those three
Yep.
questions. It's like, are you depressed? Okay, I'm sitting in the room next to my parent who's with me, and they're like, how are you answering those questions? You know, if you say the wrong thing, they could take you away from me. And like, I know that, like, when my parents were saying that, like, they weren't saying it in like a lie. It was
Yeah.
more like, you know, they weren't like telling me I needed to lie. They were just like, you know, be careful what you say, could be interpreted wrong. And so I lied. I was like, nope, not depressed. Don't have any feelings of anxiousness, not hurting myself. Like, I was just like clicking no because I thought I had to. I thought that was the only option. Otherwise, they were going to take me away from my family. There was no discussion. There was no like kind of safe space to answer those questions alone and discuss them with the doctor without kind of that fear of I don't want to upset my parents. So, although the assessment is so incredibly important, and I love that we're starting to incorporate some mental health into our medical health as a whole, I think that there's so much room for improvement.
That even when it comes to diagnosis, that I didn't realize it until like as an adult. I was a part of the early 2000s like Adderall push that I remember being an 8-year-old on like being maxed out on speed. But I didn't realize it till I was an adult that I only met with the psychiatrist once. That I was met with them for diagnosis. But as far as switching me to different medications, because I've been on every form in the book that I've been on, Concerta, Adderall, Ritalin, all of them, that I never saw a psychiatrist. That it was always through my primary care doctor, my pediatrician. And even as an adult, when I was going to get a prescription for college, because I was struggling a little in college, that they had me fill out a 36 thing questionnaire, and they're like, "Yep, you have a history of ADHD, and according to this 36 questionnaire, you have ADHD. So here's Adderall." I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, that is so incredibly reckless that anybody could just come in here and be like, "Oh yeah, I struggle to pay attention," and like that they're just going to write off a script in your primary care doctor. Not saying that, you know, primary care doctors aren't great, but that should really be going through a psychiatrist, and it's not.
Yeah, or be working in tangent with a psychiatrist or even psychologist, that you're being kind of like monitored, making sure that this is the right medication for you. I know my brother, that was the same thing with him. He was prescribed every medication in the book. And it took him 10 years to find one that like worked for him. I was talking with him about it the other day, and I was like, wow. I remember like when he tried the patch and he stopped eating and mummified completely. I remember like Vyvanse and him banging his head against the wall. Like, I remember all these medications that the primary care doctor was kind of just testing, because it's not easy to figure it out. Like, not saying that this is an easy thing to figure out the medication, especially with a child. It's not an easy thing, and there's so many different options. Everyone responds differently. Totally acknowledging all of that. However, I don't think he ever saw a psychiatrist or a psychologist to see maybe there were other things going on. Maybe some forms of anxiety was increasing his behaviors. Maybe when he was kind of fidgeting a lot and shaking around, he was anxious because of things happening at home, not sitting there not wanting to learn. Or maybe he just didn't care about math. Like, I loved math. I had the time of my life in math. My brother hated math, still hates math. He called me the other day and was like, "I need you to help me with my math class. I'm failing." And I was like, "Dude, I got you."
I'm not a math person either. I get it. I get it.
Oh, no, I was like, calculus, got it, love it.
No.
Love, like, Yeah, no, but like if a kid's not interested in a class, they're more likely going to be talking to their friends around them. They're not going to want to sit there and do formulas all for an hour or 3 hours if it's a block schedule, however long it is. I actually don't know how block schedule works, I'm not gonna lie, before I start saying block schedules. But he just was not interested in it. So here they are testing him with all these different medications, and looking back at it, when I talked to him about it, he's like, yeah, no one ever just like asked about anything. It was just, oh, he's not doing well in school. He's not focusing. He's talking too much. He's
Yes,
hyper.
let's
Like,
write him a script.
yeah. And I was like, he's hyper, but I'm super hyper. And no one diagnosed me with ADHD because I enjoyed sitting in a classroom studying. So they didn't see it as a problem. But his hyperness, they interpreted as a problem because he didn't enjoy sitting in math class and science and social studies and all those fun classes.
It's astounding for the criteria with like within the DSM-5 for ADD and ADHD. I think that they're now combining it just into one. Especially because the criteria is fitting to how boys, how it projects in them. So the mass majority of girls, women that are diagnosed with ADD or ADHD is not until they're in like college. And like I am a part of a very small group of people who were able to be diagnosed as a child, because like a lot of times hyperactivity, it is a symptom that is shown in boys but not in girls, and that's why like they're like, oh, no hyperactivity, they write it off as something else. And like, so the criteria, it doesn't necessarily fit women, and maybe that's something they need to update for the DSM-6.
Oh, maybe. And when they update the DSMs, can someone like the DSM-5 TR, like I get why these updates are important and making small changes. However, it is so expensive to buy a new DSM for like 3 changes.
They're thick too. Like sometimes like it's just like, do you think that we could just like maybe just like take a Sharpie, like just like not this anymore, and then like you'd add an insert instead of the whole thick book.
Oh yes, I know. I had to buy a DSM right before like they announced the DSM-5 TR, like the text revision. So I had just bought the DSM, bought the case book for it, like super excited in my life, like yes, my own DSM. Then like a couple months later, the TR comes out and my teacher's like, yeah, you need to get the new one. I was like, I just spent $200 on a DSM.
Exactly. And you're gonna not be able to resell that anywhere.
No, because it's no longer the right one.
Yep.
And like, again, I agree that updates need to be happening and we need those revisions, but there's got to be a more affordable way for us students. Throwing that out there in case anyone who's listening has any sway on that. So important. But yes, going back to ADHD, I have heard that actually from a lot of females who were diagnosed with ADHD, that they weren't diagnosed until they were like 19, 20. Because they were just missing kind of that symptom criteria. And I never thought about it as kind of those. I mean, it makes sense that a lot of times criteria is tailored more towards males because in the past it often was researched by males and written by males. We're seeing a significant change in the field now. We're seeing a lot more females. We're seeing a lot more diversity. But back in the day when all this started, it really was a very like male populated field. So it makes sense that the symptoms that they saw and the criteria they developed made sense to them and aligned with what they saw and how they saw it.
That even a more newer diagnosis, I think it's newer, oppositional defiant disorder, that I would say that 90% of those who are being diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder are boys. that I had somebody who was mentioning to me about their teacher, and they're mentioning a student in their class. And I was like, it's a boy. Like it's a boy student. And she was like, yeah, because even in my profession, I think I've only ever met one female child that has been diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder. And like, why is that? I don't know. That's a question for somebody else, but that's a relatively newer diagnosis that the mass majority is boys.
And I think these are such important points to bring up and topics that need to be discussed, because maybe that is completely accurate and maybe there is nothing wrong with the way the criteria is written or the way that we're approaching it or treatment plans, but maybe there's opportunity for improvement. But if we're not talking about it, we're never going to find those opportunities to make change, so that anyone who needs support in whatever manner it is gets the proper support that they need, whether it's through medication or different types of therapy, a different modality, or just some, or not just some, but some different coping skills, right? Speaking to a guidance counselor, just checking in, right? Different self-care practices. I mean, there's so many different avenues that we can kind of cross, but if we're not having conversations, we're not going to figure out those opportunities on how we can support people. I am so blown away by you and all that you've done and this conversation, because I mean, I have a lot of conversations on mental health. I love them all. I really do. I feel like it's my favorite thing to do, is to talk about it.
It's fun to talk about because everybody has like their own story. Everybody has their own experience, and it's going to be different every time. And it's very interesting to talk to people, because you're always going to get something different out of every conversation.
Yes, and I love when I get to learn new terminology, and you taught me something today. And I just thank you for educating me, teaching me something new, and for having these conversations, not just with me, but every day of your life. You are really changing the world.
Oh, well, thank you. So are you. You are doing so many amazing things. I see all your social media, and you're changing the world.
Thank you. And thank you so much for joining me today. You are absolutely incredible.
Thank you.
Oh, and how can people connect with you?
Sure. I am on Instagram. My Instagram handle is called No Shame in Brain Pain. And yeah, if people want to follow me, I post a lot of little videos. I love reels. So I post pictures, I post reels about peer support and best ways to connect with others.
Thank you so much for listening to Normalize the Conversation. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. This podcast is an initiative of Inspiring My Generation, focusing on normalizing the conversation, bringing education and awareness to the forefront, and amplifying global voices to spark change and hope. Inspiring My Generation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization on a mission towards suicide prevention through awareness, conversation, education, and support. Connect with us on Instagram at Inspiring My Generation and visit our website inspiringmygeneration.org to learn more about our work and how you can make a difference.